Already jumping after the U.S. has barred Iranian oil sales. Let's bring in the Heritage Foundation Center for National Security Senior Research Fellow, former Pentagon official, former Navy Captain Brent Sadler, along with the Hudson Institute Senior Fellow, Rebeccah Heinrichs. Great to see both of you. Brent, so Lauren touched on this at the end of her piece, that the Trump administration, our Treasury Department, has essentially eliminated the biggest primary economic benefit for Tehran with the signing of this memorandum of understanding, revoking this waiver allowing for the sale of Iranian oil. Does it need to go further than that, further than what we're seeing militarily, further than what we're seeing even financially?
The short answer is yes. There is a lot more that needs to be done. The revoking of the waiver, in effect, is reinserting the blockade, but the financial aspect of that blockade on Iranian oil and Iranian ports. Of course, they can still ship through there. It's not yet the physical blockade. But as far as this kind of responsive military posture that we've been in, it hasn't worked to date. And so I think there needs to be a review of the rules of engagement, and in viewing any IRGC forces along the coastline of Iran as hostile by their very nature and attacked immediately. This is the last bit of leverage that the Iranian regime has. It's time to take it away permanently. And I think while still negotiating, things will probably move along far more favorably for U.S. interest, and we'll get a conclusion to these peace negotiations with Tehran. But there is a lot more that needs to be done before we can get to that conclusion.
Yeah, Rebeccah, it feels like kind of a never-ending cycle. Iran strikes a commercial ship in the Strait. We've got to retaliate. They seem to want to do it again. They don't appear to be deterred by that. Does something fundamentally need to change here, or do we just keep playing this game until the 60-day period's up and then something else happens?
Well, remember, every time the United States imposes costs through military strikes, we are significantly degrading what's left of their military capabilities. If we go at a rapid tempo, they cannot reconstitute faster than we can continue to degrade their capability to threaten the Strait. But it's really important to keep in mind, the Iranians have not been cooperating with this MOU from the jump. This has been, as Secretary Wright said, the United States forcing the Iranians to stand back while we shepherd ships through the Oman corridor. So I suspect, I mean, good for President Trump for initiating these strikes and for taking away that oil waiver. He's doing that while he's in Ankara at the NATO summit, showing he can do both things at the same time. And so I suspect that this is going to require increased American military activity to further degrade Iranian coercion through the Strait.
And the Wall Street Journal pointed out that Iran is losing its grip on the Strait of Hormuz, that it was, as Brian and I have talked about endlessly since the start of this war, alternative routes, the pipelines, the workarounds, better oil supplies, even a glut, if you listen to some, is reducing the power that Iran has in the Strait. And I think some of these strikes are probably desperation. And I'm waiting to see some interdictions of some ships, maybe, by our U.S. military, some oil being shipped by Iran. But let's go on, talk about the summit. President Trump is reviving his push to purchase Greenland. Rebeccah, listen to this.
On Greenland, you're confident that the negotiations will play out, or do you think the U.S. will have to annex Greenland ultimately?
With respect to what?
Greenland.
Well, that's what hurt my relationship with NATO, because Greenland doesn't help Denmark. Denmark doesn't spend money to really help Greenland, but it's an important part for the United States. It was Greenland that, and it continues to be, that should be controlled by the United States, not like Denmark.
He's serious and he's relentless, Rebeccah.
Well, look, President Trump is worried about the security of Greenland because of its geolocation and because of its location vis-a-vis Russia and China and their increasing encroachment in the Arctic. However, Secretary Rubio has been dealing with the Danes in a constructive and private manner to ensure that Greenland is secure. And I think that that's the constructive way to go. President Trump has a historic opportunity in Ankara to have a win with NATO. For decades, presidents have tried to strengthen NATO, but it's been President Trump since his first term that has actually gotten NATO countries to invest more than $1.2 trillion in defense and to ink hundreds of billions of dollars of defense contracts with American businesses. That means rebooting the American defense industrial base and adding American jobs. So I think if President Trump focuses on that, he can take a victory lap at the end of this summit.
Brent, he is definitely keeping up the pressure on all fronts on NATO allies, whether it's spending, whether it's Greenland. Is that still the right approach?
Absolutely. This is not the time to relent, not on Iran with the military pressure while you do the negotiations, and it most certainly is not the time to pat the back of any of our European allies. There's still a long way to go and years of underfunding military to recover from. With regards to Greenland, one of the key issues is China's presence there that the Danes have refused to actually address or to police in the past. And until that's addressed, no matter what the situation is in Greenland, we're going to have a problem there. And it is a key place where we would have our missile defense and a Golden Dome based out of. So it is actually a key element of U.S. defense, but also NATO's strategic deterrence, which the Danes have not fully and only until recently started to address.
Brent Sadler, Rebeccah Heinrichs, thank you both so much. We'll see you again soon.